We're talking about I was a student of yours in 2014, and I'm really, really good friends with a number of the colleagues that you've worked with and trained. So I know you're a local legend. So it helps me feel fancy that we could sit together like this.
Oh, well, I'm really very honored. I was excited when I understood that this was about generations. And as a teacher, maybe one of your teachers at some point, I started crafting the questions that we were told to gather, and I discovered what I was doing is going by this Socratic method.
That sounds right.
Which was, I was bringing up questions that I wanted to ask you that weren't really asking what you thought. They were just asking a question so then I could turn around and tell you what I thought. So I had to stop all that and then discover what I really wanted to know about you and your generation and where you are.
I want to really have an experience and talk about experiences and kind of discovered a change over time dynamic to really hear your perspective. If it has changed or some things that stay really solidified of whatever time period you want to pick from to where you are now, how things have grown. And so I thought that'd be a really cool thing to explore.
To ask me, have you changed over your life? Oh my goodness, yes. I think perhaps where I started from and where I've ended up spiritually, intellectually, relationally, I might have taken a whole life to get to where you may be already. That may be your starting point. Because if you look back over Adventist history, I began to realize that my parents, who then imbued me with their attitudes, came to their spiritual and religious apex in the years where the Adventist Church was going through a fundamentalist stage. And so I started out with, fundamentalist teaching and literal interpretations that, the past had to apply immediately to the center. And I've spent my whole life getting over that.
That's powerful. And me and my wife talk about this all the time, where we currently, may not be true for everyone, but where we feel we culturally are, there's this big reactionary push of I want faith to mean maybe in the most extreme sense whatever I need it to be in the moment. And so we kind of find ourselves in between of oh, hey, the Bible's still real, y'all. Let's read this. And there's traditions that are still really valuable while also understanding that there are a lot of perspectives and voices that people don't feel that they've had opportunity to bring forward that do need space and time to be heard. So it's that we kind of feel there's this swaying back and forth between two extremes and finding a center ground that helps us look more like Jesus.
I've heard people of your generation say to people of my generation that, maybe parts of the Bible aren't relevant anymore. And so from what you just said, I'm wondering what parts of the Bible are relevant. I'm not asking you what parts of the Bible are not relevant, but what's most relevant still now?
I still would say all of it, the story of who God is, and it brings a picture of his character and who he needed to be for where the people were, who he was as the God of Moses with all the extravagant, wonderful miracles was needed to set these people free and help them to establish themselves in learning of God again. The Jesus that we get to have in the Bible who died for our sins and showed people who were unloved and just wild instances of throwing women before him and let's all stone her together, out of excitement, right? And for Jesus to show that's not my way, that's never who I'm supposed to be, this is what I should look like, that's still relevant. And the God we get today, where sometimes the miracles are not as flashy, sometimes the miracles don't come and we have to move through sorrow and heartache, it's still that same God. And so I find yes, that's very much a pervasive conversation, but I really do believe that God has always been the same God with the people and the times he's worked with. Sometimes just had to show up differently.
Interesting. One thing I thought of when you asked about progression through life was the way my, quote, goals in life had changed over time.
I'm curious about that,
yeah.
yes.
So when I was 14, a preacher came by and I was this young, earnest Christian who wanted to do everything right and wanted to be sure that all my sins were forgiven when probation closed. It was sort of that era. And so there was a lot of angst in getting your life right. I've since discovered that it's better just to let life happen and do the duty that lies nearest you. But the preacher came along and said, oh, you got to have a goal in life. And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't have a goal in life. Oh no, I don't have a goal in life. So I set a goal in life at that point, and I decided, okay, my goal in life is going to be spread joy around. Well, that wasn't so easy. That doesn't go so well all the time. And so later on in my life, I decided, well, my goal in life is to help other people march through this really pretty tough life that we have. And then the last one that I've settled on is my goal in life is to be a safe place. So the first two goals were about doing things, and the last goal is just about being. So I feel like now in my retirement, people say, what are you going to do? I say, nothing. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to be contemplative. I'm going to be listening.
It was really powerful. That preemptively covered one of my questions because I really was curious to hear about that. I think another one to ask would be kind of how your thoughts over time have changed over community loving in a church relationship. I think that's a lot of tension when we talk about, me and my wife, unfortunately, there's a lot of people in our generation where and it's not just Adventism, but through Christianity, we're leaving the church, finding that maybe there are other practices or other ways to be happier and it's not found in God or in the Bible. One of the common conversations that comes up is, coldness or different groups of people who don't seem to be loving. So I'm wondering, as you've, been in church for a long, long time, how your goals and thoughts, or maybe your even visions of what loving has looked like specifically as it comes to fellow congregation community in church.
People in my generation call that we say that we've been in the way for a long time. So my community in the church has turned out to be my Sabbath school class. I'm an introvert by nature, and so big groups, being in front of people, doesn't appeal to me. But my Sabbath school class is a group of people that I've been with for several decades now. And just to listen to them progress, to listen to their ideas. It's a very chatty class full of lots of experience, intelligent, educated people. And that's my church. Now, I have to say that yesterday I talked to one of my godchildren about these same questions, and he and his special person attend church here. And thinking about talking with you, I decided, I want to spend more time actually attending church services. When COVID came, it was easy to watch it online, and so I tend to listen to Sabbath school or to come to Sabbath school and then go home. But it makes me want to show up maybe a little bit more so I can see you. And
yeah, the church office, it was so opposite for me where it's relational. I do, a want sound doctrine, praise the Lord for Pastor Vin Cross, our pastoral team. She's so good. But I really my number one thing was relationship and community. I was so hurt as an extrovert over COVID where you can't leave the house. We were in Michigan, and because of how awful the burden of COVID was, there was very strict lockdown rules of don't be found outside after 6 p.m., let alone go to church. So it's so rich and it completes the Sabbath for me. If I'm at home all day on Sabbath, I feel as though I'm missing something, lacking in excitement and joy. But being able to show up with friends, I have a little son now, being able to see him, he doesn't know well, maybe he knows what's going on, I don't know. He's 6 months old, so everyone keeps saying he does. As he's just kicking his feet and drooling on stuff, watching him do that with other kids kicking their feet and chewing on stuff, that type of community relationship matters so significantly.
I want to know what your generation and or you specifically wants me to know about you. What do we not get? Are we out of touch?
That probably a lot more growth and development in relationships would happen over lunch tables than at pulpits. It's very valuable to still have a good message and a good sermon, but I've seen it. I've experienced it in many instances, not here, but in many instances where if you want to correct or if you wish to guide, it's through some big group message. Like, well, you read the quarterly, and that's good, like read the quarterly. But building those relationships of, oh, want to come back over to lunch and make a really good soup, or, you know, like you were saying, I'd like to reconnect. You know, sometimes there's a potluck, and it's like, we've had a couple members sometimes just like show up and like, here's my delicious potato leek soup. I need to go run back, but here's my delicious soup. Being able to connect over food, I think provides more of a platform to develop and know somebody better. It's one thing if you feel that your like life is correct. You know, I'm married, I have a baby, I love my job, so I'm probably feel a lot more comfortable in my own skin, comfortable in who I am, so I do not need a lot of that external validation. But I can see others, and many who might be looking for someone to affirm or someone to support or someone to listen to them if they're struggling, and how much easier that's able to be done. You know, kind of how you relate to your Sabbath school, like in those small, intimate-ish moments versus the, well, if you just show up, yeah, you'll figure it out.
So if you came into church and you met some old lady or some old man and they invited you home to lunch, that would be good?
You know, even if I did not go the first time, if the conversation kept coming, I'm the personality type where I would show up and eat. My wife may not. I was like, we don't know them yet. But that continued. But I would love that there's an invite. We would come home from the first day of visiting the church being like, someone offered to feed us. We did not have to come home and cook for ourselves. I think that's a blessing to be able to share with each other, even if not partaking. And then over time, you know, week 2, week 3, it's like, yeah, hey, you said there were sandwiches at your place, right?
So if you come into church and you see the old people there, and what do you want from us? What can we do? What, you know, you're an extrovert, so this is not difficult for you, but you know, what would you want from somebody? Do you want a smile? Do you want a conversation? Do you want a...
I think warmth is pretty universal, and warmth can look different for different people. Warmth can be a friendly smile, eye contact, a wave when you see someone end, and then warmth can also be the, you know what, your baby is beautiful, or I see such and such, I've had 6 children, you know, love this stage. We get that all the time, and I love that, like, love this stage, because when they get older, it's so different, just enjoy the stage, just that acknowledgement.
So somebody sees you.
Yeah.
They pay attention to you. They don't just step over you. Yeah.
Or like someone else will take care of them, or someone else has got them. I'm sure they have friends elsewhere, you know, and go back to what we're doing.
So I want to compliment your generation in the sense of Adventist history. I've been going down the rabbit hole of a little bit of Adventist history, which someday you may become interested in. But I discovered that there's sort of generational changes. That there's the 1844 and then there was the 1888 General Conference, this huge thing where righteousness by faith and Jesus sacrificed for us and his righteousness was brought front and center by people named Jones and Wagner, ages 33 and 38.
That's powerful.
I mean, that was your generation that just brought all this to the center and flipped things on their head.
That's beautiful. I know my wife is also reading about Adventist history. I need to probably join her and learn more. I would commend on your generation that y'all stayed. I think that in a time where we are, where I wouldn't say ambivalence, but where that, like within my current generation and younger, where that the view of freedom is coming and going as you want. I don't need to commit. I can walk away if I don't like it. I don't have to do X or Y or Z. And so the church relationship doesn't have to become something that is rooted and has meaning if you do not want it to. And that's okay, because no one should judge me, which is true in some degrees. I value with your generation, y'all, you've been here. And for decades, voluntarily.
Well, there have been reasons to wander away. There's been reasons to get mad.
And I think that even if it's not said or put on a poster, I think that's a testament. I think it's very valuable, whether we acknowledge it or not, that when we look around and we see people older than ourselves, whether it's slightly older or further along in the journey, and they're showing up to Sabbath school faithfully. You say you knew these people for decades. Like, that level of commitment speaks to a love and value of what you found here. And that's so hard to deny, whether or not I may agree with every single point you have.
Well, when you talk about blue zones, the fact that we show up every week and take time to connect with a small group or a large group, this is not understood by other communities.
Correct.
They don't take time out every week to connect with a group of people. So maybe that's why we live a long time.
That's beautiful. And we want that. Like, I want to have double my current age and enjoy and be like active and fun and being able to have these really good conversations fluidly and with nuance. And so I love to give credit to our teachers, love to give credit to people who helped to put away, for me. You taught me in 2014. I'm an alumni of Loma Linda School of Medicine. 2016, I'm a pediatrician. Because of the investment you have given to the institution through infectious disease, like, I have heard your name on internal medicine rotations. I think, where people would like go to your office and like sit and learn and like hear from you.
Right, that was fun.
With infectious disease consults, like, they'd have to come to her directly and like be given the wisdom. I have many friends in internal medicine because I did not work under you as a medical doctor because we're in different fields, but I've had many friends who I'm up on the phone with and they're talking about their interest in ID or what they learned in this cool case, and your name always comes up. And so that value of like longevity and how much you support the institution, even not working with you clinically because you take care of all the adults that I find gross on a medical standpoint, and I get the kids I love. We don't like cross paths that often. And then for myself, I'm a hospital medicine doctor, which means I don't do clinic. I joke with people that I'm the pediatrician you don't really want to see because I'm the one who tells you that your kid cannot go home, that there's some type of illness that we need to take care of here. It helps to walk people through sometimes very benign, not life-threatening issues, viral infections. And sometimes I've unfortunately been present to be the diagnosis of a new cancer and helping move them to the next stage of whatever's going on. So it's fun that we both get to be in the medical field. I think you were an alumni of Loma Linda as well.
Right.
So like our alma mater that we stay to work at and get to enjoy and serve that community.
It might surprise you to know that I came to medicine because I didn't know what else to do. It's never been something that it was a dream from childhood. So everything I've done in my specialties has been a process of elimination.
Fair.
I did internal medicine because I faint if I stand up for a long time and I fall asleep in dark places. And so I became a physician, also wanting to be able to maybe be God's hands and feet and sometimes use words. So I came to be a physician, and I like to have my ducks in a row. I like to understand everything, or I can't understand anything, and so came to teaching that way. And I have to warn you, medicine life is full of a lot of ordinary days. It gets boring. But the thing that kept me going was seeing it every day through the eyes of the new learner. So that's what made teaching medicine a joy. My specialty, as you know, but others don't know, was infectious diseases. So there was always something every few weeks anyway that would be something new and fascinating. And I had to give lectures on Ebola virus, told people I was an expert because I read the internet better than they did when it came to these exotic diseases. So that was a very interesting part of my career.
You made me think of something as you were chatting. I'm wondering if, what would you have hoped to hear when you were my age? A piece of advice, comment that, you really may resonate with you right now?
I mean, there's lots of things, but I'll relate that to medicine and the idea of bringing Christ to our patients. There was a pressure to do that, and we're taught that. And I had an internal pressure to, I've got to say something, got to do something. My advice to you would be not to try so hard. I think what's necessary is us to remember God's been at this for a long time, long before we came along, and He'll be at it a long time after we're gone. I think for me now, the understanding is to focus on having a relationship, to evolve into that relationship I didn't have before, to try and learn to love God and focus on that. Then secondly, just look around, be aware, listen, be alert to what God's doing. And when you become aware of what God is doing, then just join in. It's not like making a plan saying, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to make this evangelical plan, and let's pray that God will bless my plan. It's a matter of seeing what He's doing and joining in. Just don't try so hard. Try to make your own spirit close to God, and then listen.
Man, and then I think my advice, like to myself in the future, or what I would say would be, I hope you're still laughing and laughing a lot. I'm just in like a place right now. I think it is like I'm a new father, and I think there's a component with that. Me and my wife are both in like a really good spot in our careers and in our like just a marriage and where things are going. But I think that I'm just in a spot of just like happiness and laughter and joy. And you know, there's so many external and internal factors making medicine very difficult as a career. A lot of people are leaving. A lot of people are. There's reasons to have lots of tension, and I think that even outside our field, there's a lot happening in the world right now. Being able to have those secluded moments of laughter, happiness, and taking time to embrace that is something I think God would love. There's a full balance of there's a time to be serious, to be prayerful, to be invested, and that's important. And there's a time to like laugh and to play regardless of age.
To laugh often and much is part of success. You know, I think this could go on for a few hours. There's so much that came to life in my mind about memories and progression and changes over time that there's so much more I'd like to know about you.
We're totally chatting.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.